Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis and recap video, this time focusing on my week 6 match in the CFL, the Critical Force League. As I mentioned during my last video in this draft series, I inherited an 0-3 team. I was unsuccessful in piloting the original team in my week 4 match and lost, but was able to have a very successful week 5 match with the circuitry. And now going into week 6, I have been able to make and use the changes for this team. So I am looking to recover from that 0-4 start and continue my win streak with the newly assembled members of this team. So this is my week 6 match against the Minneapolis Marshadows. But before we take a look at that match, I do want to highlight the changes I have made to my team, as well as going over all of the options that he had available to him, so that you have a sense of what I was going for in my draft prep. So, going into his team, or going into my team first, let me adjust this slightly. Oops. Seem to have, there we go. All right. So, um, my new team members, as with this adjustment, I held on to the Megalopony and the Celesteela. There just were not enough options at that tier range to work with, and I didn't want to sacrifice my access to any of the high tiers, so I maintained both of those because it worked best with the team. I was able to successfully trade for a Gliscor, which I've always wanted to use in a format that does not allow for hidden power, just because if I don't have to account for hidden power ice in every matchup, Gliscor has a lot more fun, and I'm looking forward to getting some use out of him. Shaman, who I've used in other leagues before and enjoyed. Florges, who I have been wanting to use just because of its potency as both a wish supporter and it's a very strong special attacker with solid Calm Mind sweep sets if you're not careful. Gengar, just as a solid poison option, decent ghost option, just an all around good speed tier at that 110 mark when I was a little weak at that plus 100 speed. After Shaman, I only had Megalopony, so Gengar really fit that nicely. Incineroar, just as a good dark type, decent fire type, good pivoter, good intimidate spam, just all around solid. Regidrago, just a solid little nuke option, forces opponents to bring their fairies pretty much every week. Vibes really well with Celesteela. Electros, kind of just needed an electric type. Decent speed tier, good pivoting, can be a very solid special defense wall with an assault vest, and so I may be looking to get some use out of that as the season goes along. And then good old trusty Pyukumuku, who is always a very reliable 4-point option when I am looking to spend a little heavy on the top, but still have a very reliable bulky water to play with. Just because this team is fat, fat teams vibe very well with Pyukumuku just because of its ability to uh, get around some of the toxic spam or setup spam behind subs that teams might otherwise go for. Pyukumuku has good outs and things like Florges that can use aromatherapy plus some wish support, Gliscor to get away from some things as well, like electric attacks. So as long as Pyukumuku has good support pieces, and this team definitely has those, it just always is a very solid and affordable bulky water option if you're finding yourself short on points at the end of draft. And so that's the team I was able to assemble. Very, very satisfied with what I was able to put together. Has a lot more backbone to it than the original team did. I have a lot of pieces that can now take hits so that Megalopony and Gengar have very solid retreat options when they're done nuking with their attacks. Same for Regidrago. So I'm looking forward to using that. In this first matchup I have with this team, I am facing off against the Minneapolis Marshadows. They're riddled with heavy hitters. So Dracovish, super scary. I don't have a water absorber, so Vicious Rend is pretty much free to click just because it can always do massive amounts of damage. Heatran's a very great trapper, very great rocker. I don't have a lot of good ground types, really just Gliscor, and Gliscor isn't going to get a lot of free attacks on Heatran, so it has its limitations. Latios, who I originally had, I was able to successfully trade away my Latios for his Gliscor. I was very happy to make that trade. It was a mon I wasn't too fond of Latios in the past, and I wasn't the best pilot for a Latios, so I was more than happy to put it in someone else's hands. Zeraora, just a really good speed tier, fastest mon pretty much in draft that you'll see a lot of the time, outside of like Mega Aerodactyl and that really may be all of the legitimate mons. I mean, there's some faster things that are really low down, like a Selgor, but Zero Aura's speed tier is always incredible. Tapu Bulu, always a very scary grassy terrain, bulky wall to break, or very scary offensive option if they use it. Horion, tough to break, wish support, flip turn to safely get those wishes on. Gigalith doesn't really vibe with his team overall, just kind of a wall piece, but overall doesn't really scare me. Halucha, obviously, they're very scary sweeper. Pretty much forces me into bringing Pyukumuku, so I'm not too scared of it. Otherwise, it could just tear me apart. And then finally, the Mega Sceptile, something that does actually outspeed Zero Aura, but it's not overly scary just because it's a mixed attacker and my Celesteela more or less just shuts it down. This is a Z move league, so you have a Z captain two Z captains, one that can use any Z move and one that can only use an offensive Z move. I opt to make my Gengar my offensive Z option because it has Focus Blast, and so being able to reliably get Fighting Z's off throughout the season and ensure one really strong fighting attack was something I liked. I didn't really know where else to throw my other Z move. I opted for Regidrago just because it might give him some options to play with because he has a couple of other usable moves and being able to add a Z crystal to them might make them a little more viable. Things like Explosion that are difficult to use, or some of its other attacks like Ancient Power can actually become pretty potent with a Z move and be used as a wall breaker to get past stuff that might normally switch into Regidrago and just use that as a way to nuke them. So I was going to see where that went. And then my opponent had access to Z All on the Tapu Bulu, not overly scary, and then Z Attack on the Zero Aura. Don't really care about the Zero Aura that much. It has just a really, really hard time breaking Gliscor, so I'm not too worried about what that's trying to do. But that's the team I constructed, and that's the team I am facing with my newly constructed team in this Week 6 showdown. So to address that team, Week 6 again. I'm going to stick with a lot of familiar pieces that obviously do good damage. Mega Lopunny, I'm able to run the Adamant nature, which is really, really big in this matchup. I still outspeed, although I don't expect it to be max speed, I didn't want to take any chances. I still outspeed the Halucha by 1 point while going Adamant, so I'm able to do that. Lopunny doesn't really have that great of HP stat, so it's overall pretty fragile anyway. There wasn't a lot that I could have sped crept lower down for some of his slower options. Maybe something like the Latios. I could have maybe crept down to the 110 speed tier, but I felt okay just creeping to the Halucha and just throwing and being fully offensive. Just because I have so many defensive pivots that Mega Lopunny really shouldn't be taking a lot of hits anyway. Fake out just to give me an extra turn to do damage. Quick attack, because I like the fake out quick attack combination for Zero Aura if it got to that point in the end game where I was worried that Zero Aura could just start tearing through me in case I lost Gliscor early, just because it has the move pool to break the rest of the team. And so Mega Lopunny at least gave me the fake out quick attack to do crazy amounts of damage with priority, and which I thought would be very helpful. Close combat is just a good spammable move, and then U-turn for pivoting out for some decent damage. Gliscor, going for Swords Dance, Poison Jab, Earthquake, Knockoff, it's pretty traditional Toxic Orb, Poison Heal set. Speed crept to outspeed, I believe it was max speed Tapu Bulu, or at least Adamant Tapu Bulu. I can't remember which one I crept. Otherwise, very bulky and then very heavy in the Spadef, so that if Vaporeon doesn't bring Ice Beam, I'm in a really good position to wall out the Scald and set up on it to break it. And then the Poison Jab for either a predictive switch in for the Tapu Bulu, or if I was 1v1ing the Tapu Bulu and I was confident I would go first, just as a really quick way to shut it down and take it out, just because Tapu Bulu might otherwise think he has a pretty free reign on Gliscor, and so I have a way to really punish it. Opting not to carry Roost, just because I think the combination of Toxic Orb and then when I get to Florges, my Wish support will be enough to sustain Gliscor here. Shaman, Rocky Helmet, very, very specific speed tiers here. So it's very defensive. It has the Rocky Helmet. It is sped to outspeed max speed Dracovish, and then all of the rest is in defense, so that there is no way either a Scarf or a Banded Dracovish is able to two-hit KO the Shaman. So I'm able to always safely come in on Dracovish, easily absorb the Vicious Rend, and then if it's a band set, I outspeed it and uh, I can click Synthesis to get health back, and because I now go first, Vicious Rend loses its firepower. So I either wall it out with that, or if it's a Scarf set, it just doesn't hit hard enough, and then the Rocky Helmet will start to whittle it down slowly over the match. So either way, a really strong spot. Seed Flare, Air Slash, Earth Power, just really good coverage. Earth Power in a position to do lots of damage, but almost certainly not one hit KO the Heat Train, just a really good way to pretty much break it without quite breaking it. Florges, going for the Wish Protect set just because it's really easy to use. Moonblast because it does good amounts of damage to a lot of his team, particularly Latios, who can really break if it's not too defensive or it's weakened. And then Defog, just as a way to clear some hazards, because I have a couple of pieces that are vulnerable to those, and I don't have any hazard setting of my own, so I need to make sure I can at least remove hazards. Celesteela, going for a pretty Spadef heavy set. I believe it was as a way to address the Latios, just because I wasn't too scared of the Mystical Fire, and I could get some Leech Seed stall going on it or some Toxic stall. Heavy Slam for just some good general damage. Hits Tapu Bulu pretty hard. Hits a couple of other things for nice damage. And then Earthquake, just because I figured I may bait it in a Heatran, and so I could predictably click Earthquake in those scenarios to do massive amounts of damage. Max HP, just a little bit in defense, and then the rest in Spadef. No specific investments there, just general bulk. And then finally, the Pyukumuku, also Rocky Helmet, also very heavily defensive, just so I had two solid answers to Dracovish. If it's a Scarf Dracovish, this Pyukumuku shuts it down. If it's a Banded Dracovish, it will to a KO Pyukumuku. There's just nothing I can do about that, but I'm really counting on Shaman to be my answer to Banded. And then counter Mirror Coat, Recover Toxic, going for that set. Not seeing the value of a Soak Trap set today, so I'm not opting for that. But that's the team I brought. That's generally what I was going for in this match. More or less shutting down some of his offensive options until Megalopony's really in a spot to click buttons, or Gliscor is able to get a couple of predictive guesses to break things. Because Gliscor, after a Sword Stance, can really tear through his team quite a bit. Once I've checked for some of the Ice Beams that might be in play or some of the Ice Punches, Gliscor's really, really able to tear through his team. So we're going to take a look at this match. I'll run it at regular speed for right now, and then we'll make some adjustments as necessary. So he leads Tapu Bulu. I opt for a Lopunny lead because I don't see a lot of danger in that. I can fake out pretty freely on turn one. There is some minor concern that Flame Body Heatran's in play here, but bringing in Heatran on Lopunny is always very risky because if I click Close Combat and Heatran isn't defensively invested, it's at risk of being one-hit KO, and Flame Body still is only a 30% activation. So it's not a very, very safe switch in against Lopunny unless he's very confident I'm not going to use Close Combat. This is a situation right here where Close Combat doesn't feel very likely, so, Heatran can come in safely, but I'm just going to go for a fake out here to scout. I see that it doesn't get leftovers healing, so I'm not 100% confident it's not a bandit or not a Scarf set, and I'm afraid of a Close Combat Scarf one-hit KOing Lopunny, so I'm not going to take any chances. Just flee straight to Shaman. It does go for Close Combat, so I don't know if it's Scarf or not, but it clearly felt like it could get the KO on Lopunny, and I didn't want to take any chances. Shaman's going to wall this out fine. I go for Earth Power, expecting a hard switch into Heatran. He doesn't do that. Mega Horn confirms that it's not the Scarf set, which is good information to know. I outspeed, so I know I can stay in and predictively click Synthesis. Latios forces a fleet of Florges. I'm unfortunately tricked really early. I also know, though, we're after the trick. He's now put specs on a Florges. Florges is obviously going to have Moonblast, so Latios can't stay in on Florges attacking, and I know this. It's a very easy call to make, so I'm just going to flee straight to Gliscor on the same turn that he flees out, because I expected something like Heatran to come in. I get the Gliscor in safely. I get the Toxic Orb activated. And then I also know that he's going to be very, very afraid of Gliscor clicking Earthquake on his Heatran. So I predictably click Poison Jab, which is going to OHKO this Bulu at this health range. So very, very early, I'm able to put Tapu Bulu out of play. And the fortunate part about this is it forces Halucha in really early in this game. And Pyukumuku is just in such a great spot to deal with this Halucha this early in the game. It doesn't really have any way to break Pyukumuku. I can get the Toxic going really early. On top of the Rocky Helmet, I also have Grassy Terrain feeding me health back as well. He's not getting any health back from that Grassy Terrain, so I'm just sitting here recover stalling in front of this Halucha. It just doesn't have a way to break this Pyukumuku. It doesn't really have a lot of value in switching out because it doesn't really accomplish anything by doing that, because I can always bring Pyukumuku back in later. So more or less, I'm getting rid of this Halucha without any sort of effort, and Pyukumuku was able to get its health back to full. I've now removed 2 pieces. Heatran comes in. Pyukumuku is not in a great spot to deal with that. The nice thing about the Toxic Orb healing amount is that I don't take any damage from the Magma Storm, so the damage will stay. I'm not getting any health back, but I'm not losing anything either. Another easy prediction. Obviously, Heatran can't say another Earthquake. He could go Vaporeon, doesn't matter too much, or he goes into Latios. Either way, a knockoff feels nice because I either take away Vaporeon's leftovers, which could be useful for breaking it later in the game, or he comes in with Latios and the knockoff does a lot of damage, like it did here, where it knocks off 53%. So now Gliscor's broken Latios pretty nicely, gotten some health back now that I forced Heatran out of play. Again, I come in with Florges on Latios. I know he has to flee again. I'm not going to bother attacking because there's no reason. I'm going to click Wish. And the important thing about that is now it lets me come back in safely with Gliscor. I'm not scared of this Magma Storm anymore. And so now I can get my health back and be in a position to deal with this Heatran. And so I'm able to force it out yet again. Click Earthquake. Doesn't really do a lot to Vaporeon, but again, I'm getting Gliscor's health back slowly because every time he's forced out, I start getting the Toxic Heal boost again. Shaman comes in. I predict to switch to Latios. Not that the Air Slash was in a position to do 47%, so maybe I should have just safely gone for the Seed Flare and see what I got. Somewhat regrettable decision. He comes with Latios again. This is next turn. I'm going to make a call, and I'm going to be rewarded for the call. Twice now, Latios has come in 1v1 against Florges, and twice I've called it immediately leaving into something else because I didn't want to sit in front of the Florges. The first time I hard switched into Gliscor while he hard switched into Heatran, so I won that exchange. The second time, he was forced out again, and I was able to get another piece in safely because Latios wasn't. Oh, I was able to wish successfully because I knew Latios had to leave. So twice in a row, I've called the Latios play, and so this time I'm going to call that he's going to think I call him again. And rather than me fleeing or me clicking Lish, I'm just going to click Moonblast here, which is going to immediately one-hit KO the Latios. Very happy with how that played out. Zeraora comes in. I know Zeraora just simply doesn't have a way to deal with this Gliscor because there is no there is no hidden power. And without hidden power, it just doesn't have a way to pressure my Gliscor off the field. And I'm going to take advantage of that. Vaporeon is a bit of a problem right now in terms of breaking. I'm not concerned about it offensively. I'm just trying to confirm what that fourth move is, if it's Ice Beam or if it's Scald. If it's Scald, then I know Gliscor can get a chance to set up on it and go for a later on sweep. But right now, I'm still at a position where I'm not quite sure, and so I'm trying to get a scout out for that. Heatran comes in, I miss. I'm actually at this stage, I'm nearing the point where I'm ready to take a gamble, just because I need to start breaking what's left, specifically the Vaporeon. If I can get the Vaporeon broken, I'm in a position to close this one out, because then I'm just going to freely click Earthquake with Gliscor. Vaporeon's the only thing stopping Gliscor from just clicking a button and winning the game. But I'm just having a hard time getting free entry on it. Heatran comes in. I am probably in a position where I could click Earthquake, but I back off that. I should survive that, and I should be able to click Earthquake. But I'm a little cautious, and I don't want to accidentally throw my game. Although the more turns I allow this to go on, the more at risk I am of making an unnecessary mistake. And so I'm trying to slowly get this Vaporeon out of play. If I get this Vaporeon out of play, my game is won. So here's a big turn, and I don't remember if I calculated this or not at the time, but I see that this Vaporeon is at 68% right now, and I know this Earth Power isn't going to one-hit KO, and I know my Shaman's most likely going to be KO'd in return, but it's about creating an opening where I force him to sack something else. So I'm going to attack this Heatran. I know my Shaman is in a position where it's probably going to die, but the thing about this now is he no longer has a switch in to this Lopunny coming in, because I either close combat and KO this Heatran, I close combat and nearly KO this Zeraora, or Vaporeon tries to come in and absorb 2 close combats. But I'm adamant nature, and I'm pretty confident I'm going to do more than 40-ish%, which is what I need to be hitting to KO it after leftovers and in a turn of clicking Protect. So I know he's not with an option to work with right now. And so I'm just going to spam close combat because I'm pretty confident I create a sack no matter what he does. And so I close combat here. I do 49%, which is just enough to tell me I've pretty much won this game now because Vaporeon can't survive this anymore. Heatran can't survive this anymore. Zeraora can't come in on this attack because Zeraora doesn't really have that great of a defensive stat. So he's forced to lose something and then pretty much bring Zeraora in to try to create offensive pressure. But again, Gliscor shuts that down. And so Lopunny is just going to keep clicking close combat till he sacks something, which is the Vaporeon here. Understandably, he's going to come straight back in with the Zeraora. I'm going to come back in with the Gliscor. Aura Sphere crits at 17%, which means on a normal Aura Sphere hit, it doesn't even do enough damage to break or outpace the Toxic Heal damage, so I can Toxic Heal safely in front of it. He's pretty much surrendered this game. He used Gigavolt Havoc because he knows he can't kill this Gliscor, and Gliscor's in a position to just click buttons here. And then finally, he's going to bring in the Heatran. Gliscor is going to immediately KO that with Earthquake, and then Gliscor is going to take this game. So all in all, I knew what my conditions were. I was surprised that the Dracovish did not show up. It was just a really good offensive pressure piece, and I didn't have clear and obvious answers. If he did the calcs, it was clear that Pyukumuku could not avoid a 2-hit KO from Band. It was clear that Shaman was in trouble absorbing those hits, but I was able to build a very specific Shaman that could manage to address it in the immediate turns. And so I was able to hopefully whittle it down to a point where I could revenge kill later in the game if it came to that. And then, I was really excited about Gliscor in this matchup. I thought he had a really good chance to shine, and he did. He was able to get the predictive call on the Tapu Bulu switch in to get the poison jab in there for free to KO Bulu, which forced Halucha out early, which allowed my good old Larry to stand there and absorb those hits until it went down. And then I was able to make a really good predictive play on the Latios to sack that until I was able to finally whittle down the Vaporeon and clean out this game. So all in all, very happy with the new team composition. I enjoy the bulk it's providing me. I enjoy the wall breaker potential of Lopunny still, and I still have other wall breaking pieces to play with if the opponent doesn't have a balanced team. Regidrago does a lot of scary damage if the opponent doesn't have a good Fairymon, or if it's a Fairymon that's weak to some of his other options. So, say something that's weak to Ancient Power, my Regidrago is in a really good position to pressure those games as well because then he has no safe switch in. So I'm looking forward to trying to use him more, but all in all, very happy with what this team composition is now. I think it's playing to some of my normal strengths, but I'm trying out some new pieces. I've used Shaman before. I've used Pyukumuku obviously quite a bit, but I'm finally getting a chance to rock a Gliscor in a league without hidden power, and I'm really enjoying that. Celesteela and Lopunny are proving to be a very effective core, and then Florges is doing as advertised as being a really affordable wish support option, especially and a bulky fairy at that. So this was my week 6 match. I moved it 2-4. Obviously, not a great record, but I've only played 3 games in this league, 2 of which have been with the team I did not even draft, and I think was a very frail team. I'm now 1-0 with this team. I'm looking to get to 4-4 as soon as possible. This is an 11-game season, so there's potential for me to win out, finish reliably at 7-4, and definitely make playoffs. 6-5 will probably do it as well. So I have a tiny amount of wiggle room. So all in all, content with where this season is going, considering what I picked up, and I'm hopeful to finish it out strong. So tune in next time for the week 7 match.